This may be the biggest thing that's ever happened.
Wherever there is injustice, you will find us. Wherever there is suffering, we'll be there. Wherever liberty is threatened, you will find
the three AmiVO's. Dave McRae, Garnet Williams, Mike Pongracz. Separately, they are humble Canadian voiceover superstars. Together, they are the three AmiVO's.
Ladies and gentlemen,
here we go.
And now, the AmiVO's and Friends Super Fantastic Happy Hour Vodcast.
everyone ready?
Yeah.
Hit it.
I don't care what you say. N.B. Davis was hot.
There was something about her. I mean, hey, she was with the butcher.
I'm sorry, Ann B. Davis?
N.B. Davis.
Ann B. Davis?
Are we dating ourselves again?
Alice from the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
Oh, Ann B. Oh, okay.
N.B. Davis.
Okay,
So
I thought you. No. I literally thought you were saying Ann B. Davis.
No.
Like A-N-B-Y Davis.
B. Davis. She was a handsome
Ann
woman.
B. Davis. She was a very handsome young woman.
Yeah, just saying.
Hey, you know what else I'm saying? What did the Canadian pigs say?
Oink.
And we're back. Bacon. It was a stretch, wasn't it? Back bacon. Yeah, all right. Welcome to the AmiVO's and Friends Super Fantastic Happy Hour Vodcast. Wow, that was a stretch.
That was
That was a stretch. Just like my pants. Whatever the hell that was
I
supposed
don't
to
even know
mean.
where that meant to.
I don't know.
This is
I don't
completely
know.
already off the rails.
It is.
In front of me, AmiVO Garnet Williams.
Hello.
To my left, AmiVO Dave McRae.
Hello.
I'm AmiVO Mike. Pongracz. That's me.
We sound excited to be here.
You know what it is?
Really happy to be
It's-
here.
But this is the problem with living in Canada in the winter.
Yeah.
It's that the doldrums.
Yes.
The doldrums.
SAD, I believe it's called, seasonal affective disorder.
Sad.
That's-
Kind of
is
like
that a
my
real thing?
career.
Seasonal defective disorder?
That really is. When
It
the
is.
nights are longer and the days are shorter, people get all depressed and shit, and it's a thing.
Well, when the nights are long,
I'm not
and
buying
the
it.
land grows cold,
I'm not buying it. I'm not buying this
and
seasonal.
the moon.
The hell's that shit? I'm not
see.
buying that.
I just did that for the amusement of you.
It's like people who have glandular
That's why I
problems
keep
because
you-
they're 400 pounds.
That's why I keep you around.
Shut your
I know,
face.
yeah. Hey, as long as you stand by me, it's all good. Yeah, it's.
All right.
I'm just feeling kind of not so blah. Like things are good. Yeah. I mean the
You're
year
right,
is
right.
off to a good start.
We got
Things-
great feedback from our first show of 2016
Oh, my God.
with the lovely and talented Mary Lynn Wisner, sorry. I have a cold.
That's okay.
But
again, a part of the Canadian winter.
Exactly.
But yeah, we got a lot of feedback. People loved that, and it was nice to be back. And we thought, well, you know what? We're just going to keep this train a running.
Keep this train
Yes.
running. And because it's, cold and crappy here, we figured we'd try and keep the trend of better weather than where we're at.
Yeah,
That's right.
And our guest today, it's kind of neat because we always joke about the voice industry being not so much. It's incestuous in that, you always come across people that, there's sort of the 6 degrees of separation in voiceover.
6 degrees of Canadian bacon.
6
degrees of Canadian
Back to the
bacon.
pig. And our guest today, there's some weird connections, through.
We'll get to
Garnet.
that, but yeah, just we had worked together, and then he gave me a shout out on Facebook, and from there we just talked, and next thing you know, bam, he's on the show. So
and that's sometimes how it goes.
It's phenomenal.
And it'll be cool because our guest is on the west coast of Canada, which,
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people, they'll say that Canada has 2 major markets for VO. I mean, one is Toronto and the other is Vancouver.
Yeah.
And a lot of great people have traveled that path from
That's right.
Toronto to Vancouver to L.A., David Kay being
Yes.
one of
Yeah.
those guys. So it'll be very cool to get the perspective of a guy who fairly recently moved from Toronto
Yeah.
to Vancouver. It hasn't been too long.
a couple years ago.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to get the perspective of somebody who was in this market, made their way to Vancouver, and sort of the success that they're having out there.
Now he's living like the movie
He's-
stars on
he
the West
is.
Coast.
Yes.
There you
Cement
go.
pond and all.
However, he also we've got to get into his meal ticket though.
Yeah, we will.
His meal
Yes.
ticket.
Yeah.
David Godfrey joins us from Vancouver when we get back on the AmiVO's and Friends Super Fantastic Happy Hour Vodcast after this.
Bacon back.
Thinking back. That's good. That's perfect.
The 3 AmiVO's.
Warning.
We'll be right back.
Changing the voiceover industry 1 toque at a time.
We're going to take a little break, but we'll be back in a while, so don't nobody go nowhere.
And now, it's time for another 3 AmiVO's fun fact.
Hey there, it's AmiVO Mike with another AmiVO fun fact. Nicknames. Most people have one. Some have many. Some have ones that are beyond flattering. In my case, growing up with a hard-to-pronounce last name, most of my friends just called me Pano. When I got into radio, I ended up working under an assumed name, which was Mike Wyman. Why? Yeah, long story, not important, but was necessary because there are a lot of whacked-out radio listeners who I didn't want knowing who I was or where I lived. I also have a nickname for my days as a pseudo-professional wrestler / manager / writer, which my buddy Adam, who's a former WWE wrestler, still calls me today, which is FBH, or Fat Buddy Holly. And longer story, funny, but not important. When I finally left radio, I felt such relief going back to my given name, and my parents loved that. Did not like when I changed my name for radio. But the one sort of nickname I love the best is reserved for my best friends growing up. It's the Archivist. See, all through high school and beyond, I've been the keeper of video footage, audio cassettes galore, and a cache of photos of important times. See, my job is to keep all this stuff so that if one day one of us loses our memories because of old age or disease, we'll have this stuff to hopefully trigger those recesses of our brains. Personally, I'm not one of those people who dwells in the past. I like moving forward. But at the same time, I get a kick out of seeing a lot of the stuff we did when we were growing up. And I also like seeing where I came from, and who and how the people I grew up with helped shape me into who I am now. So maybe that's why I've got this great career now where almost everything I do professionally is physically documented, orally, in some way, shape, or form. Well, I am the archivist after all.
From the land where it's perfectly okay to say, nice beaver. The 3 AmiVO's.
I think that's the dating game, isn't it?
Could be.
That's what it sounded like.
There you go. All right, let's do this.
We're not aging ourselves now.
No, not at all.
All right.
And we're back.
I notice Garnet's doing it now.
It's never get. I always do it.
Yeah, he always does it. Yeah.
It's been that long that we've been apart
I know.
that you've forgotten.
It's been that long since we've had to do. Then we've done shows.
Yeah.
So
Holy
which
snap
is
and crap.
kind of what we
All
talked
right.
about in the first half is the fact that we haven't had exactly the time to get together as often as we would have liked.
Well, it's because
to.
we're busy guys.
Well, at least we say we're busy.
Well,
I have to keep that appearance up on Facebook and on social media that I'm busy.
It's like the British show, Keeping Up Appearances. You've seen that British show? Keeping Up
Yeah,
Appearances?
Mrs. Bouquet.
There you go.
Yes.
Bucket.
Mrs. Bucket.
Yeah.
Mrs. Bucket.
Okay, we're veering off. This is why we don't do shows because we can't get on topic.
Exactly.
The neat thing about what we do, especially up here in Canada, and I mean, we talked about this in our last episode with Marilyn Wisner, is how we got together because we were with the same agents.
We were bumping into each other at
Yeah.
auditions and stuff.
And I mean, I knew Garnet through another friend of ours. Didn't really know him, but because we worked in the same city, and then Dave, you and I, we'd work together on stuff, and we'd all get booked for the same. So there's this,
Very incestuous.
It's a cosmic sort of like. This is not where I was going, but that's okay. But our guest today, it's interesting because there is this weird sort of cosmic twist of fate where we've kind of got the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon going in stuff that we've done, that we've worked on, and places that we've worked at. So, I mean, for me, our guest... I should probably introduce him.
You can say his name.
Yes, our guest who shall not be named until we get to him. David Godfrey out in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia.
And he's Canadian.
Thank you, please hold the applause.
Too
He's
late.
Canadian, and this is the first Canadian we've had on the show, and I think about 4 or 5 episodes, actually.
Well, at least this year.
Well, we had Matt Calrick on, who
Oh,
lives
you're
in
right.
Vancouver,
You're right.
but
Well,
by way
He's
of
on
Australia.
the island, though, isn't he? He's
Yeah.
on Vancouver Island.
That
think
does
so,
not
yeah.
count.
I think he's Victoria.
Matt, we love you, but that does not count.
Yeah.
Can't remember.
Anyway.
So the point is, David's here.
David's here.
Yes, he's here.
And David was here close to AmiVO headquarters at one point.
That's right.
The David connection that I had, and it's funny in sort of looking at your resume, is that you worked on a show called F2 Forensic Factor. You did an episode of that.
I was in an episode.
Were
of
you
that.
in an episode of that too?
I played an ATF agent. This is about 2005, maybe.
Okay, 2007.
So Dave was in it.
Yeah,
you voiced it.
I did an episode as well where I had to play some serial killer in Abbotsford, BC. Where I talked about, it was creepy. I had to be like this, I'm on the phone talking to the cops because I'm like, I'm outsmarting you, and and I'm talking about what I did to this girl, and I just remember saying I was biting her breast. That was
as you do,
as I do. So that's my connection, is that we've worked on, and Garnet, you and David have
it
background
was just
too.
out of the blue, and I can't remember. I posted on a Facebook thread that you had also posted on, or something like that.
Yeah, as soon as I saw your name, I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I remember Garnet came in to voice some stuff at Chorus when I was freelancing there.
Yeah, you were directing, and I was doing like billboards for the kids' channels for YTV and Treehouse and stuff like that. And thankfully, you as you said, my name kind of
triggered something.
Triggered a memory, and you just shot me a private message, and we ended up chatting back and forth for a few days. So
the miracles of social media.
You gotta love it. We live in the future.
And David, as we'll get into with your backstory, was at Chorus, which is a media company up here in Canada.
Yeah.
A media giant now after a big transaction last week.
Yeah.
Where they
buying Shaw for the second time.
Exactly.
Yes. Which actually surprised me. I thought, if anything, it should have been the other way around, but that's just me.
They didn't want to divest themselves of Wind Mobile.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It's all big business,
2.6
But anyway,
billion.
David's here.
But David's here, and now and the other David, AmiVO Dave, and I,
Yes.
we do a lot of work down at Chorus now as well.
We do.
So there's this connection. But David, let's go back to when you were in Toronto, in the Toronto area. How did you get to the whole voiceover sort of landscape? You were a director, like a voice director.
Well, actually, how it started for me is I was a musician, touring musician with bands for a few years, and it came down to a point where I thought to myself, if I want to be invested in the music industry, I'm going to have to get some sort of formal education and not just rely on gigging in sleazy bars every weekend, all as fun as that was. But I went to school at Fanshawe College for recording engineering and recorded music production.
Okay.
Did a third-year program called Digital Applications, which was basically the days just before Pro Tools. I know I'm aging myself again.
Oh, wow.
And I got early graduation and worked at Manta Eastern Recording Studios in Toronto.
Oh, right, Manta,
and,
yes.
And it was at Manta where one afternoon I watched Reno Romano. I don't know if you're familiar with
we know Reno.
Mr. Mazda.
Yep. So he came in one day, pulled up in his Porsche and his nice Armani suit, and nicest guy on the face of the earth. So you couldn't hate him for his immense success. And I watched him do sprint tags. So it was a individual tag for each individual state at $500 US a tag plus 100% buyout. And about 90 minutes later, he left. So I'm thinking, wait a minute, the guy just made $50,000 US in 90 minutes. How do I get this gig?
Wow.
So I started harassing producers that were coming in, namely the non-union smaller stuff to begin with. And Todd Booth, who is Kim Mitchell's music producer, was also doing freelance commercial production. He had asked me, why don't you give it a shot, get into it? And honestly, I said to him, again, I'll date myself, I was over at Jungle Music, and there must have been like 100 cassettes on the wall of talent. How the hell am I going to get picked out of that bunch? So he called me the next day and he goes, look, I got this audition for Megamouth. It's like the sound effects thing for Irwin Toy, and I need a big Tarzan Dan, over-the-top guy to read. And he goes, do you want to audition? And I was like, yeah, okay.
We're going to need you to change the voice just slightly if you're going to do that. But.
Yes.
So, yeah, we did the spot, and then he called me back the next day. Of course, working your first job in the recording industry, I worked in duplication, making copies.
Oh, wow.
So,
and I bet you back then you were doing duplications on reel-to-reel machines, weren't you, at that point? Or?
Yeah, it was the quarter-inch copies.
Oh,
we did
wow.
some cassettes, and 1-inch video going to 3/4-inch, and beta. We just got a D-beta machine at that point in time, but Todd had called me the following day, and he said, look, can you lay back take 65 to the master and make me, X amount of copies? And I'm looking down the take sheet, and I'm like, hey, take 65, that's me. He's like, yeah, you got the gig. I'm like,
nice.
Wicked. So Scott Irwin asked Todd, he goes, look, can Dave emulate other guys? Because at that point in time, they didn't make any actual product. They brought it in from overseas, and they the original company had put all this money into branding, into name, into look. So they didn't want to go changing everything. They wanted to keep the same music, the same sound effects. They just wanted a guy to do the voiceover and sound like the guy who originally did it in Australian, Japanese, German, whatever it was. So I totally fell into this gig with Irwin Toy where I did all their stuff. It was probably about a 5-year-long gig, and then it just branched out from there. So
that's really good.
Right place, right time, and not being afraid to ask, I guess.
So at the same time, were you doing the freelance directing where you and I cross paths?
That totally happened in another aspect of, I was at Manta Eastern for, I'd say maybe about 18 months to 2 years. And I thought, okay, if I want to start engineering or move this further on down the road, I'm going to have to get out of here because none of the engineers are going to leave there. They all make 6 figures. They work maybe 30 hours a week. There's no way unless someone dies. So it's not going to happen. So I went freelance. I worked at another company and we eventually branched out and I started doing more freelance work. I was freelancing at Deschamps Studios as a Pro Tools engineer.
Oh, yeah. Claude Deschamps. Yeah, that's right.
And I had heard someone over talking about Chorus had just built a couple of Pro Tools suites, and I got in contact with them down there, and they had said, yeah, well, come down here. Maybe you can show us a few things, which turned into basically a full-time freelance gig. But the majority of stuff they did there, they always had junior producers, people who never really had a lot of experience, and they'd get talent in the booth, and the producer would just sort of freeze because, they're juniors and they didn't have a lot of experience. Where at this point in time, I'd been doing voiceover for 4 or 5, maybe 6 years. So I just jumped in and took the reins. So I ended up doing probably I'd say the majority of the voice direction for all of the junior producers. Mm-hmm. And then I was always looked to for second opinion with the seniors as well because of my background and the scope of what I'd done at that point in time. So it was a great thing. And right before I left Toronto, I actually started freelance directing, and I was working with, I don't know if you guys know Brad Nelson. He was with Company X.
The name sounds familiar, yeah.
Now he runs Cylinder Sound.
Okay.
Yeah. So so I was doing some freelance voice directing for him right before I came out here, and that's sort of how the Vancouver tie started because I'd worked with David Kay on a Harvey's National campaign right before the gears started turning, shall we say?
David Kay, that name, I don't know. He's done a few things, right?
Just a few.
I think he was from Peterborough or something like that. I don't know. I wonder what he's doing these days now.
Lives in L.A.
Anything ever happened with that guy?
No.
Voices Fox News or Fox Sports.
That David Kay.
Yeah.
But you
drives around in his Ferrari with his personal engineer assistant.
Yes, and golfs a lot apparently now. So now you came up in Manta Sound, which it was a legendary studio up here. And it's funny because some of the names that you bring up. I mean, Deschamps Studio, which sadly
it's not there anymore.
It's not there anymore.
No.
It was sort of bought out by Wanted in Toronto. But a lot of the people that were at these studios over these years, and you get to know them, and your career advances because of the people that you know and the relationships you build there. You get to Chorus. Where does the tie-in, or where did they sort of figure out, hey, you can voice stuff. How about we get you doing some promo stuff for our specialty channels?
I think it was like, honestly, my first actual day mixing there. And the director of sales at the time, Chris Marshall, creative as well, he had come in and he goes, did I overhear that you act and do voiceover? And I go, yep. He goes, shake your head for me a little. Yeah. That's perfect. I got a gig for you Friday, half a day. You're going to play a teacher. And then, of course, we're going to post the spot, and he goes, hey, can you do Bill Paxton from Aliens? Oh, man, we're going to die for sure, man. And I said, something like that, sure. So he goes, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. You're going to voice the buffalo, who was a 3D animated character in the commercial, and you're going to voice the Spot. And I ended up doing all the post on the Spot because I was the post engineer. So I acted in the Spot, did all the post, voiced the buffalo, and did the voice of the brand. So that point in time,
one fee for all of that.
I was just going to say, boy, did Chorus save money there.
Luckily, I was in a good position where everything was kept separate. So they never tried to lump me, and they never tried to short me. Although, being part of Chorus eventually comes down to where a budget cut affects you somehow or somewhere, right? So
Absolutely. Well, and I think that's the general thing now, especially up here in Canada, with the fact that, Rogers has a big chunk of the media pie. Now Chorus has a big chunk of the media pie. you're at the mercy of one or two, maybe three companies when it comes to stuff like imaging and promo work for the specialty channels. I know Chorus went through that sort of at the end of last year, where there's talk of streamlining. How that goes?
Well, they sold. Like I do all of the promo work for Encore Avenue, which is a channel that airs out west, and I've been doing that for 4.5 years, I guess now, and they just sold it to they sold Encore, HBO, and a few other ones as well. I forget which, to Bell Media. Yeah. And as of March, I'm done. I'm done with Encore. So there's a lot of things that are changing at the moment.
It's a tough thing, up here especially. So I think more so now, like knowing the people that are sort of involved in the actual production and making the relationships with, building a good relationship with the people that are behind the scenes.
Exactly.
The producers, the editors, the engineers, the people in charge, the voice directors. It's always good to, they're the ones that are, they don't want to spend time in a studio unnecessarily. Yeah. And if they can get somebody in that can bang stuff off and make their life easier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which, and I think that gets a little bit lost these days on a lot of the talent, is that, you know what, if you don't necessarily have to be the best, you have to be really good, but be personable, be directable.
You got to be real. You got to be genuine.
You've got to be able to be directed.
Exactly.
Especially if you're in a studio environment and not sitting in your basement, in your home studio, trying to...
In your underwear.
Yeah, well, that's the best way to do it.
Hey, wait, I left the camera off.
Mike, you mentioned specialty channels, and when I was talking with David online, he was the voice of CMT, I believe?
Yeah, I'd done billboards, so the closed captioning is brought to you by.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was the most recent gig that I had done, and that was a 7-year long running stint. So and it was it wasn't as weekly for me as it was. My wife did WW movies and Cosmo.
That's what I was going to mention. It's like it's VO's in the family because Dave's wife also imaging voice and voice work.
Yeah, so and then you had mentioned the cutbacks. Well, they came around and they said basically, the 13 stations we have right now, we don't want to have one individual voice the billboards, budgetary constraints. We want one talent to voice all 13 stations, closed captionings.
Wow.
For the same weekly fee that we've been always paying you.
Yeah.
Which is now, and again, that's the way the big companies tend to go.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And, voiceover has always been sort of like at the end of the chain, the end of the production chain.
That's right.
The VO talent is usually the last one at the party.
Yeah.
And seems to be the first one to be forgotten.
Last one at the party, and, sorry.
It always cracks me up, though. It's like, okay, so we're going to save maybe, argument's sake, a couple of $1,000 a year on talent costs, when we're still paying, so-and-so in the board of directors how many millions of dollars a year. And of course, that media buy that cost how many hundreds of thousands or potentially millions. But, let's just,
Well, you know what,
we'll talk the voiceover guy down $100 or so.
Not to digress too much, but that comes down to not understanding the fundamental sort of business that voiceover is, and that it's a talent, and that it's an art, and that it's a craft, and it doesn't get the respect or the notoriety or the
the appreciation of it.
Exactly, because it's seen as just reading. It's
anybody
that's what goes into
read
it.
a script.
Anybody can read a script. Whereas if it was seen as a talent and a niche sort of specialty, if it was seen as a specialty sort of talent, that might change.
It's a commodity to be bought and sold as I see fit.
It's exactly.
That's why when you're the last at the party, everybody turns and looks at you like, "What the fuck you doing here?"
It's exactly. But I mean, and David, when you were, you probably saw this when you were working, at Manta, is that you had the real quality talent that would come in. They wouldn't screw around. They would nail it, in a couple of takes. But then you'd also get the ones in there that, it's like pulling your hair out. No wonder most engineers that I know now are bald, is probably because
that's exactly
in the
it.
90s,
yes.
there were this glut of talent that couldn't do it. That thought, well, I've got a great voice. I sound fantastic. Well, can you do the copy?
Mike.
Hang on, let me just do that again. Sorry, what do and I think that's, there's a certain element there of
Well, there's a difference between an announcer and an actor.
And being able to go and deliver.
That's right.
So
voice acting, it's a tired cliche at this point, but it's so damn true. Voice acting is about the acting, not the voice.
Yeah. I mean, look, Steve Buscemi is always a great example I look at. The guy does not have a spectacular voice, but he's a brilliant actor. So he's always going to be landing roles because he can knock it out of the park when the button hits record, right? That's the bottom line.
And he is easy on the eyes, too.
No, is he ever?
Let's not forget that.
and we talk about budgets, but I mean, studio time nowadays is
I'm sorry, we've lost.
Dave.
McRae's gone off the reserve here. Are you all right, Dave?
You said it with such conviction. It is so serious.
That was some believable acting.
That was phenomenal.
Acting. Thank you.
Oh, son of a
But we were talking about budgetary and the fact that, nowadays, because home studios are so prevalent and more and more clients and agencies are starting to realize that, there's some quality home studios out there. But if you are booking time in a studio at, $150, $200 an hour just for the studio time, not including the engineer and everything on top of that, that gets pretty pricey. So you want to make sure that the guys and girls that you're getting in there can bang stuff out quickly, efficiently, and be done with it.
That's right.
So
absolutely.
Now that we've gotten
that out of the way,
completely bang off. So you're in Toronto. I'm assuming that you fell victim to what many of us in this country that had worked in the broadcasting field at one time or another, the downsizing land.
Actually, I didn't. I was very fortunate that, as you had mentioned about building rapport with producers and clients, I was sort of the sought-after commodity at Chorus because of my skill set, because I was able to direct a session. I was quick in the Pro Tools, and, they'd book a half day to do something, and we'd pop it in and out in an hour, and producers were thrilled.
That's pretty good.
So it put me in a good position. But for me, it came to the point where engineering started to feel like Sausage Factory. I'm going in every day. I'm doing the same thing. Put the sleeve in, fill it with the meat, out the door it goes. There was nothing creatively rewarding. It was becoming very stifling. So I began by saying, okay, I'm at the point in my voice career where about half my income comes from that, and the other half comes from engineering. And you know what? I'm going to cut back to part-time at Chorus and see if I can't make up the difference in voice by, putting that time and energy forth.
Nice.
And then it eventually came down to where I had said Christmas break was coming up, and I said to my wife, I said, you know what? After Christmas break, I'm done. I'm no longer going to freelance at Chorus as an engineer. I'm just going to strictly focus on my voice career. And everything else sort of fell into a really weird pocket at that point in time. We'd built up, between my wife and I, we'd built up a good little clientele on the East Coast in Toronto that we knew that we could survive on pretty much no matter where we lived, provided that everyone was willing to work remotely, which 80% of my clientele was already working remotely, so they couldn't give a crap whether we were in Vancouver or Timbuktu.
Yeah.
Hey, if it's delivered on time and it sounds good, we're all good, right?
And you were primarily doing you did the promo work, but you were doing commercials. Did you do anything like narration, corporate kind of stuff?
It's always been a little bit of everything. I guess the stuff that I've sort of steered away from for the most part was anything. I wasn't really big into doing long form. So
no audiobooks, no
audiobooks, no e-learning unless it paid a gob of money, which generally it didn't. So I was focused at that point in time. My focus had become more on how do I get into the animation and video game market. This was getting to be my focus. And even working at Chorus that owned Nelvana, I still couldn't get into that, what I'd call like the circle, right? Where it's, the 20, 25 people that get called for, like you said, though, you have to put it in perspective. And when these directors and producers are going, I'm paying how much for studio time and I need talent, it's going to knock it out the door every single time and there's not going to be any issues. That's why they call those same people, because they know they'll deliver and it'll always be great. But I couldn't break into that group no matter what. So it was starting to become the whole, well, what are we going to do? I'll keep firing at it. And acquaintances of ours had moved out here, and my buddy's wife had said, hey, you should come out to Vancouver, at least for Pilot Week. And I'm like, what the hell's Pilot Week?
Right.
They kind of, they cast from Vancouver because Los Angeles and Vancouver are kind of connected. Then the gears got churning. I'd just done this David K session prior to that. And the wife of my friend had said, look, I'm going to put you in contact with Matt Hill. I don't know if you're familiar with Matt Hill or not.
No.
You can look him up on IMDb. It's one of those guys, 160 credits of doing animated series. And he's a very successful voice actor out here in Vancouver.
Nice.
So they put me in contact with Matt, and I said, I'm kind of thinking about, Vancouver and getting an agent out there. And of course, they don't want to rep you unless you live in the city. And then we started thinking, well, hey, maybe we could move out there and it's a fresh start and all the rest. So I sent an email off to Caroline Young at Characters, who reps David Kay and Matt Hill and Lee Toker. If you don't know Lee, again, look him up on IMDb. He was nominated for a Daytime Emmy last year. Absolutely incredible actor. Nice. And I thought if someone's going to rep us, that's who it's going to be. So I sent an email off to Caroline, heard nothing back. So my friend's wife had said, here, I'll put you in touch with Matt Hill and you guys can chat back and forth. So I send an email off to Matt and I get an email back from Matt. And you got to know Matt, but, I'll do my best Matt Hill impersonation for you, which was like, dude, that's going to be so awesome when you get out here. We're going to work together. Oh, we're going to be it's going to be the coolest, man. I can't wait for you to get out here. It's going to be awesome, dude. So, and I'm like, wait a minute. This is not the vibe you get from the Circle of 25 in Toronto. Right. They're like, what are you looking at my pie for? Who are you, the new guy? Don't even think about taking my gig. Right. Where out here, it was very different. So Matt got back to me right away and said, hey, I assume you already have an agent. Your reels were killer. It's going to be great. And I said, I don't. I was approaching Caroline, but I didn't hear back from her. He said, well, look, I can't promise anything, but just I'll give her a little poke and tell her to, check her junk mail folder and maybe she'll get back to you. And like literally 10 minutes later, I get an email from Caroline, saying, sorry, I didn't get back to you. I don't take unsolicited emails. My roster's full, blah, 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 blah. Loved your stuff. Can you fly out here and meet with me? Wow. And of course, at this point in time, I was booked for about 2 weeks solid. And I'm like, I can't come out there until this date. And then she said, well, I'll actually be in Nova Scotia visiting family during those 2 weeks. And I'm suddenly feeling opportunity slide away. And then she said, well, why don't you come out here, Boxing Day over New Year's and check out Vancouver, and the office is closed and we can sit down and meet. So I packed up the family. We flew out here for a week to do a little vacation, Christmas, and check it all out. I met with Caroline and obviously said, she was interested in signing me, or she just wanted to make sure I was just marginally psycho and not completely nuts. and then it obviously it all fell in place. But at that point in time, I showed her a video of my daughter who was doing this crazy little jam with me, and she goes, I just started a children's division, and I'd love to sign your daughter. And I was like, oh, wow, this is awesome. So I sent her a little email as we finished up the meeting. I went back to the hotel, and I sent her an email. I'm not expecting anything, but hey, check out my wife too. So I get another long-winded email from her saying, my female roster's full. I'm not accepting any new females, blah, 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 blah. I don't have anyone that sounds like Lisa. I'd like to sign all three of you guys.
Oh, jeez. Wow. Okay, so this is the jackpot at this point.
I was going to say.
That's how I'm thinking of it, right? Here's like I would, hesitate to say, the top agent in Canada saying, I want to sign your entire family. So, we met with a real estate agent while we were there, looked at a couple of houses, flew back to Toronto, put our house up for sale in Toronto. I flew back out here the following Thursday, put the offer in the house in North Van, and we were all moved in by March 21st.
Wow.
So
it was a whirlwind.
Yeah, and totally, throwing all caution into the wind, right? So, but like I said, we'd build up a little clientele, so it wasn't, completely, we're risking everything to do this. It was, we got a good little steak and potatoes meal that always comes in, so anything that we do here will sort of build up and become something better.
But
so
you gotta chase those opportunities. What do I say, Michael? You got to risk it to get the biscuit.
There you go.
It's true, though. Without taking that chance, you'd never get it. And I mean, honestly, if I hadn't come out here, I would have never landed an animated series of the scope that I'm on now. I mean, I did do an animated series in Toronto, but it was something that aired in the UK and was smaller and non-union and small potatoes money and minimal broadcast, where now the series I'm on is #1 in the States right now for preschool. It's doing incredibly well in Canada on Disney Channel in both countries. And that's led to other opportunities, like I said, to My Little Pony and plenty of auditions for other big name work. So it's been great.
Now, what do you find is the difference in the VO landscape from Toronto to Vancouver? Because, I mean, in Canada, let's face it, there really are only two big markets for VO if you want to be a VO talent. Toronto, Vancouver. Montreal, I guess there's a certain amount for as far as video game goes, with Ubisoft being
Well, you probably get a lot of the French work there as well.
Manitoba's coming up.
I hear Elliott Lake is really for the retirement VO. But what do you find is the difference having gone from Toronto, like you said, the circle of 20, which we know many of those people in that circle, and as good as they are, at some point you're like, God, let me in. What was the biggest difference going from Toronto to Vancouver as far as the idea and the feeling, the vibe of the VO community?
Well, I think partially for me, it's a twofold. One, I was going from a smaller agency in Toronto to a larger agent. So I won't name names, but the agent that I had in Toronto was sort of the mindset of, hey, I booked you a gig. Be thankful you're working. Take the $175 and shut up about it.
Right.
I'm probably exaggerating a little, but where here, my agent's like, no, I'm sorry, David doesn't work for that. We'll have to negotiate, this and that. And then there's got to be, if you want to do it on the internet, well, that's going to be an extra. And then, there's this many lines. Well, that's got to be. So Caroline is a freaking shark when it comes to an agent.
Nice.
And since she's reputable, it's one of those things where she's long established. She has a clientele, the people that she deals with. So when she starts, pushing and prodding, it's not like she pushes work away. They respect her and she represents me and gets me the best possible deal she can. That was the one aspect. The second is the talent. That's the thing that I find, it's almost overwhelming. I mean, I know quite a few of the people that were in the Toronto 20, shall we call them? Mm-hmm. Like you said, great actors, but there was always sort of this vibe like, well, I can't help you out, bro. Like, if you can't get in there on your own, there's nothing I can do. And
I also know some of those 20. They're not into doing voice work because they like voice work. They do other things, and voice work is just something they do to get a paycheck to supplement their other acting gigs, or their I know one of them's several of them are like stand-up comedians, and it's not for the love of the game like I think you have and well, obviously your whole family and us at this table, and that kind of angers me is that they don't even really want to be there.
I could see that.
For the experience and for the love of voice acting. It's just like, my agent put me up for this, and makes me a couple $100, whatever.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. So the talent here I found, meeting Matt right away. The guy is just like the most incredible human being, and he's so giving and very open and fun and warm and welcoming. And as I started to meet some of the talent, because you go to auditions, and actually I got in the circle here through my daughter, my daughter had landed a gig about maybe, the joke was, watch, we'll move, 3,000 miles across the country to get into the animated and video game world. And Maddie, my daughter, will be the first one to land a real gig. And sure enough, she does, right? She gets on something that was going to be a series, eventually got cut back to a straight-to-DVD release. But, her first day in, and she's in with, a number of people like Tabitha St. Germain, who's, again, any of these names I mentioned, these are all people with like 150-plus credits that do tons and tons of work here. Brian Drummond, Michael Dangerfield, who was originally from Toronto. And she's in the circle right away working with these people. So, I start to talk to some of these people, and just all the talent there's no air of, hey, don't you know who I am? Or, hey, I work at this level and you don't. That doesn't exist here.
Wow.
And when I got into the series that I'm currently on, Kate and Mim, weekday mornings on Disney Channel, it was on Maddie's back. She had an audition for Kate, the little girl, and Caroline, my agent, was basically said to the casting director, look, see David for 3 minutes at the end of the session. And he's like, I got my 20 guys I'm calling in, and, I don't know David, and, he submitted a couple of times. And so it was, all right, but, blah, blah, blah. And she just basically kept on him until they finally said, fine, we'll see him for 3 minutes at the end of Maddie's session, have him prep these 4 characters and have him knock them out and get out. So I went in and I did the gig. And at the very end of the auditions, there was a whole range of characters that I read for. And then at the very end, they go, have you got the sides for Dad? No, I don't. Here's the sides for Dad. Read. So no prep time, no going over, just read the script. So it's about, a month and a half, 2 months later, and we're on our, yearly family vacation down in Disney, and my phone rings, and it's Caroline. I'm like, she knows I'm away. What the hell? I can book you on Kate and Mim. I'm like, wicked. Which crazy character did I get? You're going to play Dad. oh, okay, I won't knock stereotyping, but that's great.
That's funny.
So, and then at the moment that I start working on that show, like I said, Lee Toker, who's was nominated for a Daytime Emmy, Brian Drummond, who's incredible, Nicole Oliver, Tabitha St. Germain, Marika Hendricks, all these people are like I said, they're all 100+ credits on IMDb. They are voice actors. They do it because they love voice acting. This is their job. And, I had mentioned maybe the second session in, I said, hey, I'm just the new guy here. And like the whole room was like, no, you're not. You're one of us. You are
cool.
Right,
you're part of the gang, man.
That's cool.
So,
that's great.
And that's the kind of stuff that you read online. You hear in Rob Paulson's podcast when he'd go and interview his friends. They all said that exact same thing. That out there, it's just like this family kind of thing where nobody's bitter and trying to get somebody else's gig. In fact, they're so generous of spirit. I remember Tara Strong saying that she auditioned for something, and when she just wasn't nailing it in the audition, she knew it and the director knew it. She said, "You might want to call Cree Summer." And you're actually giving referrals to. I know Cree can do exactly what you're looking for, and they call her, and then Cree gets the gig. It's just
right.
You don't hear about that in Toronto.
No, but that happens here all the time. That is it's just how it's done, and I think it's partially because these people are working all the time. So it's not a question of I need this next gig because I have to pay my mortgage. It's like I've been doing this for 15 or 20 years. The work just keeps rolling in. And I live in a nice house, and I'm set for life, and everything's great and wonderful. So they all share the joy. And even with my agent, I mentioned that the last time. I said, I'm in there, and there's still times where it's like, hey, I'm the new guy. And she's like, you stop saying that right now. Right. You're working on a major animated series with these other people. You are one of them. I'm like, okay, sorry.
Well, it's funny because I think, and you see this online, there's this attitude from newcomers to voiceover, or those that are maybe not sure of themselves as performers in voiceover, that have this notion that I'm competing against the guy next to me, or I'm competing against Dave, and I'm competing against Garnet. When in all reality, if you're doing this right, you're not competing against them. You're competing with whatever's inside the casting director's head.
Yeah,
you're competing with what's in the client's ear,
exactly,
and trying to deliver that. And
I could not agree more. It's like I tell people that all the time. I go, this is not a competition. You could go out there and you could have the most awesome audition ever. You knock it out of the park. You deliver your lines like an absolute pro. But when it comes down to it, you're a cello when somehow they have a violin in mind.
Yeah,
that's right.
So there's nothing you can do to change to make that happen, right? So you go in, you audition, you do the best that you can, you knock it out of the park, you give them your everything, you walk away, and you forget about it.
And I think the second that the people that are really talented, that really have a keen sense for this business, the second they realize that, I think they'll be a happier talent, which will translate into a better performance. Because the second you stop feeling like you're constantly against somebody, excuse me, that's when you can actually enjoy the company of the other people that you're working with.
You can, because I've had this conversation with newbies a lot, actually. And I've said, look, when you go to your first audition, or when you're trying to get yourself into Mike, are you okay over there, Mike? Yeah. All right.
Heimlich, quick.
But when you go to your first audition, or when you're first beginning, a career, it can be intimidating to those who, you get into a room. But I always say to people, look, you are there. You're on the team. You're auditioning for the same things that these people are doing. Don't let because when I was first beginning, many, many moons ago, I remember going to some auditions. This is the late 90s, early 2000s. I remember going to a few auditions, and I don't see it as much anymore. And I don't know if these guys have sort of, passed away and they're not there anymore, or what the case is. But I remember going to some auditions and you would see the typical, seasoned veterans there, and they have this aura.
Guys.
Yeah, well, yes, but they have this, aura of arrogance, and yes, well, I think that the situation is, how are you? And it can be intimidating to somebody who's never done it before. And so when I tell people, look, keep the mind frame that you are there. You are on the team. Maybe you're not on the first line, but you're on the team. You're on the bench, and you're working your way there. To keep that sort of, mentality of hey, you know what? I belong here. Because the second you let somebody else dictate your confidence and your ability to sort of see that you're supposed to be there, you're going to start to doubt yourself, and you're going to start to,
and your performance will reflect your feelings.
Exactly. If you have the talent, if you truly have the talent, and as we know, talent can't be taught, right? But if you have the talent, allow that to dictate, the momentum of you moving forward.
Now you mentioned the friendship with David Kaye. Now David Kaye, who really, he's the quintessential guy that went from Peterborough, was a radio guy, went out to the West Coast, and then found his way to L.A. Are you looking to follow that path? You've moved the family from Toronto to Vancouver on a lark.
That's the first big step.
That's the first big step. Yeah. The second big step, of course, is the fact that, as Canadians, it's really difficult to make that jump to LA thanks to, certain visa restrictions and such.
Yeah, do you guys know Dwayne Hill?
No.
The name sounds familiar for some reason.
He was one of the Toronto 20 for a long time, and he's in New York now. Okay. But he's a guy with probably, again, 150 credits. It's just insane. He's there on a working visa. He's pretty much voicing stuff every day, and they still won't give him a permanent work visa.
Wow.
Because, it doesn't get any bigger or better than what he's done, right? It's an incredibly difficult thing to do. Yeah. I think the only way that we would consider something like that to a move to LA is if something came up where, I landed a role on, the argument's sake, Phineas and Ferb, or, some major Disney entity where, I'm making, a good mid 6-figure income doing this show, and it's all there and it's all placed out. And they would take care of every little last piece of paperwork. To be honest, the market here in Vancouver is very large, very vast. There's any number of animated series that are recording here at any given point in time. Mm-hmm. It's a great market here. The video game market as well. We were only here for a few months, and I had done a handful of video games, and that stream kept in steady.
Nice.
It's a great market here. So and you get used to the country and the people, right? Where else can you realistically go snow skiing and water skiing in the same day?
That's true.
Where else can you get milk in a bag?
Where else can you get
exactly.
But you know what, David, and you bring up a really nice sort of point to, having the success in voiceover depends what you really want out of it. And
absolutely.
For you, it sounds like, your family is doing what they love. Your daughter clearly is the most talented of your family. And she will be supplying you guys with houses in
That's
a
right.
matter of time. But
I just got this image because you mentioned earlier how you got in to what you're doing because of Maddie. There's years from now she's going to be like, I made you.
Yeah, she's gonna hold that over your head.
Nothing without me, Dad.
I'm surprised she doesn't do that now, to be honest. But especially at 13, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
It's that idea that success really isn't a matter of I need to do this movie or I need to be on this show or achieve this. It's if you're happy just working, if you just we do a really great job. It's a unique opportunity. Not everybody gets to do it, and the ones that get to do it appreciate how awesome it is. You go in and you read copy.
Well, you got to figure it out what it is that you want, right?
You get
what
to play.
What is it that you want? And I think too many people compare themselves to other people and what other people are doing and think that's what I have to do in order to be successful.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter, what is your success? What is your what do you want in the voiceover industry? If your ultimate goal is to just do billboards on some local TV, thing, and that's then that's great.
Or
right?
if you're happy just sitting in your home studio doing audiobooks and you love doing that and being different characters
that's your
in different
definition
genres,
of success.
Then you're successful.
Absolutely.
Don't stop looking over the fence at the greener grass.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think for Canadian talent, yes, the U.S. is a wonderful beacon to want to achieve. But by the sounds of it, Vancouver is, not too shabby.
No.
It's like it's the LA of the North, and we can work there if we wanted to. So
it's like LA, but with much less gun violence.
And clean air.
And clean air. And clean air. So what's next? Now, we talked a little bit about My Little Pony. Clearly, you've got some other irons in the fire that the words NDA always sort of creep up on, and you can't tell us about. But what's next? What's the next big thing for you?
Well, just doing what we're doing. Kate and Mim Mim is currently in season 2, and as I mentioned, it's now skyrocketed. Disney Channel picked it up. At first, it was airing on Knowledge Network here in Canada, but they struck a deal with Disney. So Disney Canada, Disney US, like I said, it's number 1 rated right now in the States for preschool animated,
awesome.
Which is great. So right now we're just riding that, and like I said, we're mid-season 2 right now. Hopefully. Well, I don't think it's any grayer yet. We talked about it last time, and they said this is the type of show that will turn into a Dora or the Backyardigans, where it should go for a strong 10 seasons.
Well, that's excellent.
And
nice.
and it's just and just going back to what you guys were saying, I'm always daily grateful for the opportunities that I've been given and for where I am now, working with some incredible talent, where I feel. I get every time I go into the studio, I'm not only inspired, but I'm encouraged and accepted. And it's a great feeling to be a part of something like that and just to see these people working as well.
Well, sorry, David, go ahead. I thought you were
No,
done.
that's all right.
I thought you were done.
I sort of was.
I was just going to say, well, a fascinating career thus far. And it's great. Yeah, you know what? It's great to be able to do these kinds of interviews and hear, the journeys that everybody is on. Everybody's journey is different,
Canadians,
but similar. Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's wonderful to see how, again, we started at Chorus and made our way back around, seeing as Chorus owns Disney now. And
if the three of us can somehow get on that show...
I know. See,
look out.
We got to move to Vancouver, apparently. That's the key. Either that or...
Can we crash on your floor?
Yes. Does Maddie have bunk beds? She can sleep on the couch.
I was going to say, I think really we're talking to the wrong person. We need to be speaking to his daughter. I think.
Maddie's got the cachet.
She's got the cachet. David, where can people get more information about you? Have you got a site set up?
Yeah, of course. DavidGodfrey.ca.
Yeah, of course.
Keeping it Canadian.
Attaboy. And keep an eye out for Kate and Mim Mim and My Little Pony.
My Little Pony.
My Little
Awesome.
Pony. It's coming up at season 6. I'm in an episode called Flutterbrudder, where I play Mr. Shy. Fluttershy's father. Playing a dad.
I'm amazed that My Little Pony. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it's great, but I'm amazed it's still going. I mean, that's a property that's been around for over 30 years.
It's a juggernaut.
Yeah, there's another thing. It's called Star Wars. Same thing. It's making a comeback.
Wait.
We'll talk about it off air.
Yeah,
I'll tell you,
we'll
fantastic.
We'll talk about it in the
It's
wrap-up.
fantastic.
Okay. Is that anything
the
like
crazy thing about My Little Pony, though, as I was saying before, is the whole... I guess culture that surrounds, like with the bronies and the brony cons, it's insane. Like the people that I work with on Kate and Mim Mim, quite a few of those are in, I'd say, semi-regulars on My Little Pony. And it seems like every month they're getting flown to Australia, to Hawaii, to
cons.
here, to there, every con. And they're making stupid money at these cons signing autographs. It's just insane. And I mean, there's the good and the bad to that too, right? Where one of the women, unfortunately, has had to put a restraining order on someone, and another woman actually has a security detail whenever she's doing these, because there is such a fervor around it, right? And so it's just insane what that has done. And I mean, it disappeared for a number of years and then came back. I think, like I said, they're in season 6 now of what they call Friendship is Magic.
Yeah.
So, but and like again, working with another great example. Just I know we're getting near the end, but talking about talent, working with Andrea Libman and Ashley Bell on My Little Pony. Both of these women, again, massive resumes. Awesome. And same thing. As soon as we're done that session, they're coming over. They're giving me a big hug. Oh, great stuff. You were awesome today. It was so great working with you. And I'm thinking, again, hey, I'm just the new guy here. But hey,
stop saying that, David.
That's
Stop
right.
saying that, Dad.
Clearly, we're on the wrong coast.
We must. We'll just slug it out here in Toronto. And
So just a great, like, it was just going back to that talent thing where everyone is very warm and welcoming and accepting, and everyone here, no one sees it as a competition. Although there's always the little jokes, right? Someone's sick and doesn't make it to a session, and they say, "Hey, can you fill in for so and so for a placeholder?" And then Brian Drummond's sending Lee Toker a text going, Lee, you better get your ass in here now. Godfrey's nailing your character. You're going to be out next season.
Oh, nice. Well,
funny.
Continued success out there, David. You are definitely you're living the life.
An inspiration,
I
for
think,
anybody that wants to make that jump.
Yeah, absolutely. And
talent and determination and having an awesome daughter, I guess, are key.
And willingness to throw caution in the wind.
That's true. Chase your dreams.
That's chase your dreams, but make sure you've got the talent to back it up, right?
I always say, what's the worst that could happen? We'll be living in a double wide down by the river.
No. The worst thing that could happen is you could go work in radio again.
Ouch!
Ouch! Hey, that's the best part about radio is that most of us have learned to live on radio wages. So once we get into voiceover, it doesn't take a lot to get over that bar line. So, but congratulations to you and the entire family, David. And it was great talking to you today.
Thanks for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah,
David, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Awesome. Good times, guys.
We'll come back and wrap up this episode of the AmiVO's and Friends Super Fantastic Happy Hour VOdcast right after this.
The 3 AmiVO's.
Warning.
We'll be right back.
Changing the voiceover industry 1 toque at a
We're
time.
going to take a little break, but we'll be back in a while, so don't nobody go nowhere.
Here's another 3 AmiVO's iceberg tip.
Hey folks, how you doing? AmiVO Dave here. This is all about being genuine. Now listen, this is going to be really easy today, okay? Now I've said this 1,000 times, that the voiceover industry is misunderstood, unappreciated, and more often than not, unrecognized, all right? And because of that, it makes it very easy for those who are not quite as skillful or experienced or knowledgeable in voiceover to create the illusion that they're more reputable and in demand than they really are. Don't be one of those people. And the reason for that is because those professional casting directors that you want to get your demo in front of, those agencies that you want to be a part of, those fellow voice actors that you aspire to be like, we can pick you out. We know who you are. You're not fooling anybody. So, in other words, be genuine. Be true to yourself, all right? If you're not at the skill level that you want to be at, then go about it the right way. Get the proper training from reputable people. Try to take it to the next level authentically. Be genuine to you, to your fellow voice talent, and most importantly, to the craft. And you will find yourself succeeding and working your way up that ladder a lot faster than you are right now. We may not tell you to your face, we may not post it all over social media, but trust me, we know who you are.
And now, the AmiVO's and Friends Super Fantastic Happy Hour VOdcast.
Everyone ready?
Yeah.
And we're back, Bacon.
That's going to be the running gag. Yeah, that's
There it
good.
goes.
I'm just sitting here trying to figure out how I can sort of milk my children to be my meal ticket into.
It's a good thing you finished that sentence.
I'm sorry, but I can't believe that. How is that? Your daughter becomes your ticket in to.
Amazing!
I had something like that happen myself. I just haven't done enough with it. Our agent,
yes,
one day sent out an open email because they don't have a children's division,
right?
But a client was looking for anybody that had kids. So
okay.
I think it was for GM Goodwrench, auto service, and I said, well, I got a boy and a girl that can do this, so. I sent off my audition along with my kids reading. It was just like all they had to say was, "I'm good," because it was like, "Hey kids, come on! Everybody got your seatbelts on?" And
I'm good.
I'm good. Got them both to do it, and they got booked.
How about you?
Yeah. So I got to play the announcer, and they got to play the two kids in the back seat of the car. And there was a female who I don't know who was cast as the mom, all from home studio stuff too. So I didn't
that's fantastic. But the real question is, are you going to give them their cut?
Now, I did because it was their money.
In Christmas toys.
My daughter, when she was 4, same kind of thing, and we actually had to go to Toronto, and it was for some medical service in the States, and all she had to say was, because it was like, why do you go here? And it's like, I go because of the service and the bedside manner and all this stuff. And it's like, and why do you go? I like the lollipops. And that's all she had to say.
Is that 4? What she got paid in?
No.
Oh, okay.
She made a good chunk of change off of this, but it was
which she's still waiting for.
That whole thing. Before you go down there, she's practicing, and you can't get her to say anything except, like, you know your line, Alexis? Yeah, I like the lollipops. I like the lollipops. We get in the booth. We get the director saying go, and she's like, no.
Oh!
This is why W.C. Fields said never work with animals or children.
That's right.
But we finally got a good take out of her, and yes, she got her money.
That's cool.
Good.
But not that's no Maddie. So I gotta tell my kids, you know what? You go out there and you work.
Yeah,
there are no free rides in this family.
No.
There are no free rides.
you do with your
That's what.
No bacon for you.
That's what David Godfrey's daughter's telling him. There's no free rides for you, buddy.
So as we've learned today, that if you want a successful career in voiceover, use your kids.
Well, you know what? I don't have any children, but I'm going to adopt one just for that purpose.
Thanks again to David Godfrey for hanging out with us. That was very cool, and hopefully we can get out to the West Coast and see him. If you want to get in touch with the show, there's a multitude of ways. thevoiceman.com and davemcrae.ca.
That is correct. Voiceman with 2 N's.
With 2 N's. WilliamsVoiceovers.com with your shiny new website.
Yes, I'm very excited. Please visit.
Please visit. MPVoiceovers.com is for me, and also you can still you can also get us at the number 3 AmiVO's AmiVOS.com. Which is our lovely little website, and we're also on Twitter too,
and Facebook,
and YouTube.
We're all over the goddamn internet.
Yeah, just go to the website. You'll find everything else there.
Just Google,
and on the iTunes, of course, as well.
And on the iTunes, yes. Please subscribe to the podcast because we're doing our best to be a little more podcast friendly this year. We're trying. Yeah. We're slowly but surely.
That wins the race, I hear.
Slow and steady?
Yeah.
Speaking of slow and steady, in front of me, Amiivo Garnet Williams.
Dick!
To my left, Amiivo Dave McRae. I am Amiivo Mike Pongracz. Till next we meet here at Amiivo Mountain, we wish you a very happy and hearty Ole! Back bacon.
We are finished. We are over.
It's over.
The AmiVO's and Friends Super Fantastic Happy Hour Vodcast has been brought to you by the 3 AmiVO's.
Show's over.
It was written, recorded, edited, and produced from deep within the Great White North by Dave McRae, Garnet Williams, and Mike Pongracz.
Are we going bye-bye?
For more AmiVO fun, questions, or comments, check us out online at 3amivos.com. On Twitter at the 3 AmiVO's. Until next time.